I used to think people like Karen never really faced consequences. They built their little kingdoms, enforced their rules, and walked around as if nothing could ever touch them. But I was wrong, because the day her world collapsed, it didn't happen slowly. It happened all at once, like something snapping under pressure that had been building for far too long. And the worst part? It wasn't just her pride that broke. It was something far more permanent. Something no apology, no rule change, no amount of control could ever bring back. What makes it harder to process is this. Everything that happened that day was set in motion by her. Every decision, every restriction, every policy she fought so hard to enforce, it all led to a moment she never saw coming. A moment where control slipped through her fingers at the exact second she needed it most. And by the time she realized what she had done, it was already too late. If you're into real HOA drama and stories that make you question how far control can go, you're in the right place. This channel dives into moments that feel unreal but hit closer to home than we expect. Before we go further, take a second to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Drop it in the comments below. Karen wasn't just part of the neighborhood, she behaved as if she owned it. Clipboard always in hand, radio clipped to her shoulder, she moved through the streets with this quiet certainty that her word was final. It didn't matter if it was something small, like the angle of a trash bin, or something bigger, like where guests were allowed to park. If Karen said it, it became law. People stopped arguing after a while. Not because they agreed, but because pushing back only made things harder. Fines showed up faster. Warnings got sharper. And somehow, she always found a way to remind you that she was watching. It wasn't just rules, it was control. The kind that seeps into everyday life until you start second-guessing things you never used to think about. Neighbors whispered about her, more than they spoke to her. And even then, it was careful, measured. No one wanted to end up on her list. But then there was her daughter. Clara, 16, soft-spoken, always polite in a way that felt genuine, not forced. She smiled at everyone, even the people her mother clashed with. And while Karen built walls around herself, Clara somehow made them feel less suffocating just by being there. You could see it, too, the way Karen's voice softened, just slightly, whenever Clara was around. Like she was the only thing that could reach whatever was left of her humanity. Everyone knew Clara wasn't completely healthy. Karen brushed it off whenever it came up, calling it minor, nothing serious. But the way she hovered, the way she watched, it told a different story. Then came the rule that changed everything. Karen called it an upgrade. Something about safety, efficiency, and keeping the community protected. A digital gate system with license plate recognition, strict access control, and one non-negotiable condition. If your vehicle wasn't pre-approved, you weren't getting in. No exceptions. Not for last-minute guests. Not for delivery drivers running late. Not even for situations that didn't fit neatly into her checklist. At first, it sounded like overkill. Then it became exhausting. Neighbors had to submit plates days in advance. A friend dropping by unannounced would be stuck outside, calling endlessly while Karen decided whether they were authorized. Even routine deliveries turned into delays. Drivers were confused and frustrated as they sat at the gate waiting for approval that sometimes never came. And Karen, she thrived on it. Every denied entry, every enforced delay only seemed to reinforce her belief that she was keeping order. People complained, quietly at first, then more openly, but it didn't matter. Karen always had the final say, and she made it clear that rules only worked if they were followed without question. Looking back now, it's almost impossible not to see it the way everything was lining up for something to go terribly wrong. That afternoon didn't feel like the kind of day where anything could go wrong. It was quiet. Almost too quiet. The kind of stillness that makes everything feel predictable. I remember sitting outside, letting the calm settle in, watching the street as if it would stay like that forever. Across the way, Clara was there, just enjoying her own little world, moving with that light, effortless energy that made you forget anything could ever be wrong with her. And then it happened. 1 second, she was fine. The next, the rhythm broke. The rope slipped from her hands, and before I could even process it, she collapsed. Not a stumble, not a slow fall, just straight down, like something inside her had shut off without warning. For a moment I froze. Your mind doesn't catch up right away. It tries to explain it, to soften it. But the way her body moved, there was no mistaking it. I was already running before I realized it, calling her name. hoping for any response. Nothing. Her breathing was uneven, shallow, like her body was struggling to keep up with itself. My hands shook as I reached for my phone, dialing for help, trying to keep my voice steady while everything inside me was starting to spiral. Time didn't feel normal anymore. Every second stretched, heavier than the last, and all I could think was one thing. They needed to get here. Fast. The sound of sirens usually brings relief. That day, it didn't. I remember hearing them first as a faint promise in the distance, something I clung to while still kneeling beside Clara. Every second felt heavier, like the air itself was slowing down just to make things worse. I kept looking down the street, waiting for that moment when help would finally arrive and everything would shift back into place. And then it did arrive. The ambulance turned onto the street, lights flashing, cutting through the quiet like a signal that we were about to be saved. For a split second, I actually felt it relief, sharp and sudden, but it didn't last because the ambulance didn't come closer, it stopped. Right at the gate. The digital system lit up like it always did, cold and automatic. No approval, no entry. Just a refusal, and there she was, Karen, standing at the gate like nothing in the world could possibly be wrong, holding her clipboard. She was already questioning the situation. Even from a distance, I could see her posture controlled, defensive, irritated that something was interrupting her system. The medics were trying to explain through the intercom, urgency in their voices, telling her it was an emergency, a cardiac case, a child. But she didn't move. She asked for verification. Protocol, clearance codes. The kind of words that suddenly felt unreal in that moment. And while she argued, the sirens kept flashing, the ambulance stayed stuck, and time kept slipping away. When the gate finally opened, it wasn't because Karen agreed, it was because someone else forced it. I don't even remember who moved first, only that the barrier gave way and the ambulance surged forward like it had been released from a cage. But by then, something had already changed in the air. That urgency we were holding on to started to feel heavier, slower. Like we were arriving late to something that had already ended. The medics rushed in immediately, dropping everything the moment they reached Clara. Voices snapped into sharp commands, hands moving fast, trying to restart something that was already fading. One of them called out her condition, another began compressions again, but there was a kind of silence between their movements that no one wanted to acknowledge. Then Karen arrived. She came running down the driveway, still mid-argument from the gate, until she saw the scene. The moment her eyes landed on Clara, everything in her stopped. The clipboard slipped from her hand. Her voice broke before she even spoke a full sentence. And in that instant, the rules she built her entire world on didn't matter anymore. What happened after that day didn't stay quiet for long. At first, Karen tried to deny it, tried to argue that everything followed procedure, that the system was working exactly as intended. But the truth was already out, and it spread faster than she could control. Someone had recorded the entire moment at the gate, the ambulance waiting, the arguments, the delay, and once it hit social media, there was no putting it back in the box. Neighbors who used to stay silent started speaking up. Stories came out, delayed deliveries, blocked access, warnings ignored. Suddenly, it wasn't just about one tragic moment anymore. It became a pattern people could finally see clearly. Within days, she stepped down from the HOA. No announcement, no explanation, just silence. After that, she stopped showing up entirely. The house stayed the same, but she didn't. And the neighborhood changed with her absence. Not loudly, not quickly. Just a strange, lingering quiet, as if everyone understood that something irreversible had happened, and no rule, no system, no authority could ever undo it. After everything, what stayed with me wasn't just what happened that day, but how easily control can turn into something dangerous when it's never questioned. Karen didn't start out wanting harm, she started out wanting order. But somewhere along the way, she forgot that rules without compassion don't protect people. They fail them. And now I keep wondering the same thing every time I pass that empty gate. Was it just a tragic accident of timing, or the inevitable result of her own choices catching up to her? What do you think? Did Karen deserve what happened, or did her system fail her in the worst way possible?